This is BYU Sports Nation, brought to you by the BYU Store, simulcast on BYU TV and BYU Radio. Now, from Studio B, here's Spencer Linton and Jarom Jordan.
BYU Sports Nation is live, your day-to-day play-by-play back in Studio B, presented by the BYU Store, official outfitter of BYU fans everywhere. It's been a while for both of us.
Been a minute.
Wherever and however you're connected, great to have you with us. I am Spencer Linton, teamed up alongside a man I am quickly becoming reacquainted with, Jarom Jordan.
I am Jarom, you are Spencer. Hello, good day to you. Yeah, we both went on fun trips. I would have rather been on your trip, honestly. The Masters, bro, how was it?
The Masters was, as advertised, incredible, iconic. The scenery and the course layout are unbelievable. It was, I was just telling you moments ago, chaotic with Tiger Woods making his return. So people are scrambling around him to try and get some type of view. There are no phones allowed on the course.
Yeah.
At any point.
Yeah.
In practice rounds, the par 3 challenge, the actual, nothing. So like you have to take like a digital camera for just the practice rounds if like you want a picture. And so you're kind of like a prisoner to what you see at the Masters.
Prisoners
in
to
the
the 1950s.
Right?
Pimento and cheese.
No digital
eggs,
scoreboards, no replay, anything like. So you hear a roar from 7 holes away, and you're like, I wonder what just happened.
Someone hold out from the bunker,
and you don't know until you get back home later that night and be like, oh yeah, okay.
That's hilarious. Yeah.
So pretty wild, but super traditional, obviously.
Yeah.
And fun to be there.
Oh,
but
that's cool, man.
Meanwhile, you're saving the universe.
I was
at Star Wars Land at Disneyland.
Yeah, we went hard, dude. I'm exhausted. I was so tired. But it was very fun. California Adventures, Disneyland, and Universal Studios. So it was awesome.
3 for 3.
Yeah. We had a break between each day. So the cost of hotel bill was way up, but
worth it.
But we walked 11 miles at Disneyland on Tuesday. Just crazy. But it was super fun. Ben and Tate loved it. I loved it. It was great. Whitney loved it. My sister-in-law came too. She was the real MVP.
Yeah.
Because she could really help offset some of the travel. We drove down, extra traffic. We stayed in Vegas, coming back, didn't anticipate that. But anyway, super fun. Super fun trip. Glad to be back. I can only really do a week away. And then I'm like, I want to be back.
Need something.
And I actually spend more social media time on vacation than I do normally.
Yeah.
So I'm like, what's going on? I'm at Disneyland in line for 35 minutes, Rise of the Resistance or whatever. I actually paid to just get in that one. I was like, I'm not getting in the 75-minute line.
Okay.
Let's just go. That's such a good
Greatest ride
so
at
good.
Disneyland.
Although, there was a lot of stress with my kids and whether they would cry on the ride or not. So in Credicoaster, Ben is going, Dad, ah! She's freaking out. Tate is freaking out as well in Rise of the Resistance. And I am having to tell him, this is fake. That's not real. That's just a screen. That's not really Kylo Ren with a lightsaber coming through the ceiling.
Yeah.
Like, spoiler alert. But yeah, you can't say spoiler alert after. My bad. Yeah. But anyway, a lot of crying, a lot of, it got to 97 on Thursday, by the way, last week.
A heat
in
wave
LA.
for
97.
the ages in Anaheim and LA. Wild.
But it was fun, man. Fun
I had a tornado warning at the Masters, so they're opposite ends of the weather spectrum there.
Exactly.
Here's your Master Show lineup, beginning with another potential major roster shakeup for BYU men's basketball and head coach Mark Pope. What now? Dual threat analyst Blaine Fowler, also back from Augusta and just in time to help us figure out what the biggest need for BYU basketball is currently. And the BYU to the Big 12, I'm going to call it engagement party, continues. What Barry Trammell of the Oklahoman said in his article following a trip to Provo. Bring on today's BYU Sports Nation headlines.
Yo, Gideon George says he's declaring for the NBA draft without hiring an agent, meaning he's keeping the door open for his return, potentially. Gideon averaged 8.8 points a game on 44% from the field. Much more on this coming up in What's Trending.
The BYU Cougarettes win not one, but 2 more national championships.
Yeah.
Championships 21 and 22 for those counting, and we obviously are. The Cougarettes won national titles in the D1A Jazz and D1A Hip Hop categories. D1A is the highest level of dance competition available for university teams.
The celestial level, if you will.
Yes.
Congratulations to the Cougarettes. They dominate, man. Baseball swept Santa Clara 10-0 and 9-5 on Friday and Saturday. Dawson Hall, bro of Jaron, hit his first career homer Friday. Shout out to Maple Mountain. That's where I live now. In front of the 10th largest crowd in BYU history. And Saturday, Josh Cowden Help BYU come from behind with this 2-run jack.
And Cowden goes to right field. That's way back, and it is gone.
Well, that's what we talked about just a few minutes ago. Cowden, he's got tremendous power.
That's right, Gary Shiny. Cougars play at Nebraska this week.
Okay, a little out-of-conference action before they get back into the WCC. Now 6-6 in West Coast Conference play. That was a huge sweep.
Yeah.
BYU softball, speaking of West Coast Conference play, drop a tough series against a much-improved LMU squad, 2-1 over the weekend to open up their conference slate. Now it becomes tough sledding to win a 13th consecutive conference championship.
I was going to say, are they in danger now of not keeping that streak going?
They need LMU to lose at least 2 because the Lions hold the tiebreaker over BYU now.
Although we do have like a month-ish left, right?
Also, a matchup with Dixie State for BYU on Tuesday has been canceled, not surprisingly, due to
not understanding what name that school has.
Utah Tech as of, July 1st?
We don't know what your name is. We're canceling the game.
37 degrees and snow in the forecast for Tuesday, so they're not going to play. The next game for BYU, Thursday at Idaho State.
Don't sleep on them. Ashley Hatch scored another goal for the U.S., this time in the 86th minute against Uzbekistan. I know it's the wrong country, but very nice. It's her 4th goal in 7 games for the U.S. Oh,
fantastic.
Amazing. She's scoring for the U.S., dude.
It's so cool. Men's and women's track and field had a big weekend in the Sun Angel Classic and Aggie Invitationals. BYU had 4 event wins in the Sun Angel Classic, including Colton Yardley in the 400-meter hurdle. 5th best time in program history at 50.01 seconds, 10th nationally this year. Other wins included Ashton Reiner in javelin, Claire Seymour in the 800 meters, and the men's 4x400 team. In the Aggie Invite, the Cougars had 3 first-place finishes: Emma Johnson in the 200 meters, Spencer Carlisle in the 400-meter hurdles, and Jake Grimsman in the high jump. He cleared 6 feet, 8.75 inches.
Men's volleyball lost in 3 and 5 sets at Stanford over the weekend. Cougars did switch setters, though. Noah Hain got the start, true freshman. Will he start this weekend against
Welcome
UCLA?
to the show, Noah.
By the way, Saturday, BYU's up 2-0, lost 24-22 in the 5th. Tough one. As mentioned, BYU hosts #1 UCLA to round out the regular season Friday and Saturday on the BYU TV.
Beat the Bruins in at least 1 set.
Yes. Listen, I'm interested to see what happens. I don't think BYU's just going to get destroyed this week.
Oh, heck no. They'll show up and play.
I think BYU shows up.
BYU men's golf tees out today at the 75th Western Intercollegiate. Carson Lundell finished runner-up in the individual event last year. The tournament will run until Wednesday, and you can watch all of the action live on the Golf Channel. That's cool.
Okay, it was Masters, now it's BYU.
Now it's BYU men's golf. The women's team also in competition today and tomorrow at the Chambers Bay Invitational.
Women's soccer went undefeated this spring, finishing with wins against Southern Utah and Utah Valley on Saturday, led by a combined brace on the day from Ruby Haldick and Paula Garcia.
Paula. Yeah, nicely done. Men's tennis lost twice over the weekend, 4-0 to USF and 4-1 to Santa Clara, but the women's team did get the best of the Broncos 6-1 on Saturday. Both teams back in action this weekend, the women against LMU and the men take on Pepperdine and LMU as well. All rise and shout. It's time for What's Trending.
You're talking about it, and so are we. It's What's Trending on BYU Sports Nation.
Roster roundup for BYU men's basketball. What in the world is BYU basketball going to look like next season? No Alex Barcelo, no T. John Lucas, got a couple of transfers already out the window, and then Gideon George says, hey, I'm going to test the NBA draft waters. This is getting more and more interesting for Mark Pope. So, Jarom, let's start with just your reaction to the news that Gideon George declared for the NBA draft, although he didn't sign an agent.
Yeah, so he keeps the door open to come back if he wants. His original intention and declaration was that he would come back. In my conversations with him like a month ago, we're like, yeah, I'm coming back next year. So I'll be surprised if he doesn't.
Sure.
Also, the declaration for the NBA draft. I love Gideon. We all love Gideon. He's not an NBA draft pick. What we really mean by this phrasing is looking to see if there's an overseas opportunity there. He certainly could be Charles Abouo. Like, he could go home, play in Africa somewhere. He could play maybe in Europe. There's an opportunity. Like, he has good length and athleticism. At times, his three-pointer's good. Like, pretty inconsistent. Like, but we all love Gideon. We want the best for this dude. He's a great human being. Yeah, when we say the NBA draft, it's like, homie ain't getting drafted. Sorry.
He wants to be Malik Fitz. the former St. Mary's guy who's now kind of working his way onto the Celtics roster.
Yeah. Listen, that's a good comp. I don't think that Gideon's at Malik Fitt's level at this point. But I think Gideon has a professional career in there.
Sure.
It's not an NBA career, but it's somewhere, which is awesome. Like I'm not even sure Alex Barcelo has an NBA career. You know what I mean? Like, I'm hoping he's like G League dude, crushes it, gets a shot. Or he goes overseas and he can beat Kevin Pangos. Like, why can't Alex Barcelo be Kevin Pangos? I totally see that somewhere in Europe successfully for
His
a lot of
game
money.
is perfect for the European skill set.
He's too good of a shooter not to be a pro, right? But when it comes to Gideon, certainly there's some work to be done. And, I'm not ruling out anything for anybody, but it certainly doesn't feel like the NBA draft is a thing with Gideon. I expect him to come back, and I hope for the best for him, whatever that means. If he goes, he goes. BYU's loaded in terms of, like, okay, they have Trevor Nell and Spencer Johnson and Seneca Knight coming back in the backcourt, plus 3 return missionaries that they like, especially Dallin Hall. We're stoked about Dallin Hall. Rich Saunders is going to be a baller. Tanner Toolson going to be a baller, we think. But like Dallin Hall feels like he's a Big 12 signee, if you will. Mm-hmm. Colin Chandler, Big 12 signee. Foose, Big 12 kind of player. Tiki potentially down the road. Caleb Lohner, yeah, let's go. Those are the guys where I'm like, okay, Big 12 kind of players. I'm not talking Kansas Baylor. I'm talking to go 500 in the league. Like, if you can get a team of those guys, I feel like you can go 500, and then you can make the tourney.
I want Gideon George to come back so that Richie Saunders and Tanner Toolson specifically do not have to be thrust into the spotlight right now.
Yes, because
maybe
then,
one or both of those guys can redshirt because you do have Gideon George and Spencer Johnson and Seneca Knight.
But BYU will bring in a couple transfers, and they won't have to be thrust into that situation. Those 3 guys. I think Dallin Hall will.
Dallin Hall, I think, can. I mean, from what we have heard from the coaches and what we have seen and talked about and discussed, Dallin Hall feels like a guy that could be an immediate contributor.
Yes.
He'll
just have to beat out some seniors.
Sure.
Yeah.
I don't know as much about Richie Saunders and Tanner Toolson just because they weren't in the limelight per se as much or discussed as much when that class was signed.
And I need to know exactly when they return. That tells me a lot. Like, if they get home in the spring, it's different than if they get home in July. Like, if one of these guys gets home in July, I'll be like, maybe in February they'll do something.
Here's the other thing that Dallin Hall has working in his favor to be an immediate contributor. His position is listed as a point guard.
Yeah.
BYU is desperately in need.
There's no point guards on the roster.
Point guards.
There's
Who's
0.
going to be the primary ball handler for BYU next year?
A transfer.
And Dallin Hall. Right? Or is Dallin Hall going to be switched over to play the 2? Is he going to be like an Alex Barcelo
there are plenty
hybrid?
of 2s. There are plenty of 2s and 3s right now.
I want Gideon George to come back, and I think he will. This is a great thing for him. Go and get some feedback from the NBA draft analysts.
Go ahead.
And go to camps, be able to talk to people. You don't have an agent. Find out what you need to work on so that you can pursue that professional career at a next level. Find out what you need to do. So I expect him to be back. And I want him to be back so that Richie Saunders and Tanner Toolson, those guys can just take a breath after their mission. Like, it's okay. Step back, get acclimated with the system, with Mark Pope and his staff, and then be ready to go in the Big 12.
Get antiquated, too. Get old.
Yeah. It's true.
Yes, because and this is something we need to discuss at some point here soon, is next year about next year, or is it getting ready for the Big 12?
Oh, man.
Like, it's the swan song in the WCC. I don't know about you. I don't really feel that emotional or whatever about that. Like, it's getting into the new house. I don't care about the old house anymore.
I know that
the new house.
Mark Pope and the staff
exciting.
are going to pitch, hey, this is your last opportunity to win a West Coast Conference championship. BYU's never done it. This is your chance to make history.
That's hilarious
to be the team that's never done
the tournament.
Something.
Yeah. Can you get hot in Vegas? Sure. BYU had it down to the last 5 minutes 2 years ago. And Gonzaga's going to take a step back, we hope. Okay, topic 2. Let's step back to the 10th best team in the country instead of the first.
What a fall from grace.
They suck now. If Gideon George leaves, it would mean another scholarship is open for a new player. Let's break down the scholarship situation.
Yeah, and we've talked about a bunch of this already, but let's get to the scholarship numbers specifically.
Okay, there's 10 dudes returning, 7 in the backcourt. Nell, Johnson, Knight, Stewart, plus Hall, Saunders, Toolson. Okay, that would be the backcourt. Front court, Lohner, Foose, Atiki.
Transfer.
Right?
We need a transfer.
Okay, transferring out, Erickson Hansen. I said Hansen was a walk-on 2 weeks ago. That was incorrect. He's on scholarship. I've confirmed that. That means 3 scholarships are open. At least 3 right now. There might be more. Who knows?
What happens if Gideon George doesn't come back?
Right? I've assumed he's not in this.
Okay.
If he comes back, there's only 2 technically. We've talked about it. So what do you want BYU to do with those open scholarships?
A point guard and a center.
Yeah. That's what I said a couple weeks ago.
And maybe there's some familial ties for the center position with somebody that's already on the roster. We don't know. The point guard situation, well, there's some very, very talented junior college point guards specifically that are looking closely at BYU. One specifically that is looking at BYU. That to me is like priority number 1. Point guard and then size.
I like 8-letter first and last name. 4 and 4. I like that. Yeah.
Point guard, then size.
100%. Yes. And they need to be like, come in and start guys to me.
You got to play. You got to contribute immediately.
It needs a 5. Like, I don't want to play undersized. I don't want to thrust Atiki into the spot quite yet. I think midway through next year he might be ready. But not right now. And then definitely a point guard. Like, BYU might need 2 guards. You know what I mean? A point guard and another impact guard. Because I don't know about you. I like Trevin Nell and Spencer Johnson and Seneca Knight. But none of them have emerged as like, the consistent guy that's a double-digit scorer.
Isn't this the year that would be a perfect scenario for one, if not multiple, of those guys to emerge because so many shots are now available? T. John Lucas and Alex
Those
Barcelo
are going away,
gone.
bro. The moment that BYU signs a point guard and maybe another guard, those shots get gobbled up, like 80% of them with those 2 guys probably. Because if you bring in those 2 guys, you're not saying, well, you'll compete with these guys for playing time. You're probably going, listen, we expect you to start. We expect you to start.
Big questions remain for BYU basketball.
And that's like if BYU's going to make the tourney. If BYU's going to go to the NIT again, they don't need to do a ton.
Yeah, it's clearly about
you know
the
what
tournament.
I mean? Yes, that's the goal.
Clearly.
So you need to get to you need to be better than you were last year, Spence.
Yes, and 3 scholarships open. I want Gideon to be one of those coming back.
Yes.
Come on back. Our question of the day.
Baby.
What is the greatest need for BYU basketball to fill going into next season? Let's go to Voice of the Nation.
This is the Voice of the Nation on BYU Sports Nation.
Wyatt Karras gets it on Instagram. He says, 1 true point guard, 2 true center. Yes,
true.
And yes.
True meaning pure. Like, Dallin Hall is a combo guard, though. It's my understanding. Okay, he's not like a
he's
true.
He's like an Alex Barcelo.
He's not a true. Yeah, because AB was more of a 2 to me. He's not like
Alex
a point guard.
was a combo guard.
He can play point guard.
Dallin Hall's probably going to be the backup point guard to whoever BYU lures in from a JUCO transfer or the transfer portal.
True center. Atiki's a true center. Foose is a 4. Caleb's a 4. Don't ever call Caleb a 3. He's not a ball-handling wing. He's a post, right? I think in high school he was more. But the way BYU's been playing him is more of a 4, and then they put him at 5 sometimes. Undersized. It's one thing when you're playing Pacific. It's another when you're going to play freaking Baylor in Kansas. Yep. Like, you need true positional players, right? Let's go.
A true point guard, a true center, and Gideon George. There you go. Hashtag BYUsn.
And a true church.
Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.
Coming up, Colin Chandler dunks on fools at a USA basketball camp.
And Blaine Fowler was my buddy in Augusta. Is he going to be wearing the Masters green? More importantly, what can he tell us about what BYU basketball needs to do in their future? This is BYU Sports Nation.
Okay, man, you got this. It's not that bad. Okay, it's a little bad. Just do it. Woo! That was unbelievable.
Some things seem scarier than they really are, like buying a home. But your loan officer at Intercap Lending will help you get pre-approved and walk you through every step of the process. Intercap Lending, a name you can trust since 1978.
I'm okay.
Tim Daly Ford in Spanish Fork sells Ford vehicles including the F-150, the pickup designed for work and play. Tim Daly Ford maintains a large inventory, providing more choices for selecting an F-150 with the power and engineering to carry and tow heavy loads. The F-150's design offers comfort, safety, and a range of options to choose from. Think Ford, think Tim Daly Ford in Spanish Fork.
Follow the ups and downs of elite young gymnasts in an exclusive behind-the-scenes look as they twist, flip, and bounce their way to the podium. See the commitment, effort, and mindset it takes for these competitors to rule their sport on Gym Stars, on BYU TV, or on the free app.
BYU Sports Nation is presented by the BYU Store, official outfitter of BYU fans everywhere.
A reminder that you can listen to BYU Sports Nation on demand. You can download the podcast. Just Google BYU Sports Nation podcast, subscribe, rate, and review.
We are live in studio B on a Monday. This is your day-to-day BYU Sports play-by-play. I am Spencer Linton, reunited with Jarom Jordan.
It's been a minute. Like what? Like March 31st?
Well, I was trying to think about how many shows we have done together in the last calendar month. It's like 3 shows in a month.
It's been crazy. Yeah.
Or something like that.
It's been wild.
So it's good to be back. Also good to be joined by Blaine Fowler, one of my travel buddies to Augusta and the Masters.
I can hear the birds right now.
It was crazy.
Yeah, they were tweeting a lot.
Could you hear the birds in there?
You can't see them.
Yeah,
You can't see the birds. I'm like, where are the birds?
They're deep.
Could you hear them?
Oh yeah, they're deep undercover.
You can hear them,
and it wasn't
but
affecting
you can't
like
see them.
Tiger and Brooks and all those guys. Like they're just unflappable, but they were bothering me. Like when they were standing over a putt, I was like, hey, I can't focus on the putt right now. These birds are driving me nuts. I don't know how they focus it out.
I don't know if it's piped in
They're
sound. I know
super loud, you're saying?
No, they're all over the place, but you can't see them.
No.
So Spencer's got some of his gear on, and I don't have any on because I went into that shop, and you can only get the stuff at that shop. And I was not going to lug around like 80 pounds of stuff like Spencer went and got a bag that looked like Santa Claus's pack, put it over his shoulder, and schlepped it around the golf course all day long with him.
That was the sacrifice.
But Augusta is like this great system. So I bought $800 worth of gear.
Yeah.
And I put it all in a bag, and then you walk next door, and I shipped it out. So it's coming to my house sometime this week.
Yeah.
That's
Look,
awesome.
I had to take care of my guys. Ben
know.
Bagley, Junior Phillips.
I'm like, what? I was like,
floating me
what
money.
are
Like,
you
get me
doing? You
something.
just spent an hour and a half in that store. And he's like, well, he starts naming off names. I'm just like, man, you're a better man than me because I got $800 worth of stuff for me and shipped it home.
That's awesome, man.
Santa Claus is here for all that put it into my wallet. Hopefully I can deliver. Okay, so we talked about the Masters experience. Now back to reality, Blaine, with BYU basketball. And this morning I'm on the phone call with Jarom, and I'm thinking, holy cow, if Gideon George is leaving, now Mark Pope is dealing with another scenario of like, okay, well, how are we going to piece this thing together? So what's your reaction to Gideon George leaving, and how does this now affect BYU basketball and their roster shakeup moving forward?
Well, it hurts, and there's a couple of scenarios that I see happening with Gideon possibly. At first, when I read that, I thought, man, they expected him to be a primary scorer and in a big role. And you remember that NIT game where he played so well. That's who they wanted him to be. Yeah. And, a vital role, a key cog, a leading role on this team. And so I thought, man, this is not good. And then I thought about Yoli when, the first year that he declared. And then I calmed down a little bit. I got back off the ledge. I've climbed back in the window. Mm-hmm. And I thought, well, it's not the fact that he put in that initial tweet, I have not put my college career in jeopardy because he's not going to lose eligibility. He's going to keep his college eligibility.
He's not going to sign an agent.
This allows him to go out and test the waters. It allows him to play in some of these pre-NBA draft camps and get some exposure, which is nothing but good for him, right? And not only good for exposure for him, but helps him develop as a player, play against really, really good talent in some of these camps. So that's all a good thing. And maybe the mindset is, and I haven't talked to Gideon because we were gone all last week, maybe the mindset is, this is a good idea for me, keep my eligibility, come back like Yoli did and have an unbelievable next year. I think Yoli was a better player because of it, and come back and play. That's scenario one. I think I'm leaning toward that's what's going to happen with him. And that's going to be good. That's all good for BYU. The other scenario is he goes out, he gets exposure, and all of a sudden GMs and player personnel directors from European teams come and say, hey, do you want to come play in Italy? And we get an Eric Mika situation where he decides it's time for me to go make money. And that concerns me a little bit because that's a real possibility. He can play there. He's not polished enough, and he's not good enough to be drafted in the NBA yet. And could he go get better and have a phenomenal senior year and all of a sudden be one? Yeah, he could be. I don't think he can play himself in these camps into being an NBA guy. And so that's the other scenario. I think the probability is higher that he raises his stock, he gets exposure, he comes back to BYU, has a phenomenal year, and raises his stock even more. I'm hopeful that's the case because he needs to be a key part of what they do this next year.
Yeah, he's not an NBA draft pick, clearly. Like, single-digit score in the WCC, percentage is a little lower. And my concern for Gideon is the same concern I have a little bit for Trevin, Spencer, Seneca, and who's the guy? Like, and there could be two, but like out of the four, it's just like waves. My turn, your turn, my turn. Which that's not going to get BYU in the NCAA tournament next year. Like, you got to have two of those.
It's okay if three of those guys average 12.
Right. I just
like if they're consistently all scoring 12.
Yes.
Then you're okay. You don't have to have. I've seen really good teams that don't have a 17-point scorer, but they have five guys that average in double figures, and they're always in double figures. It's not one guy 19 one night and the other guy's 3, and then the other guy like you just described, which is what we witnessed this last year. But if all of a sudden they all go, hey, we understand our role, we know where our points come, and all three of us average 12, and Foose averages 14 and 12. That's kind of a 14 and 9, okay? And Atiki all of a sudden is a threat in the post. I would be okay with that. I'd like to see more consistent play out of all of them because they all had flashes of brilliance.
Yeah.
And Johnson was a guy who early in the season I thought, whoa, this is bonus because this guy was supposed to be this lockdown defender, and now look at him scoring and knocking down threes, and then it kind of fell off. If he can become who he was for a stretch, he can be really good. Gideon, if he can become – Gideon's got all kinds of upside. And then Foose and Atiki, they're just scratching the surface. And Foose was good, and he's just scratching the surface. But they've got to add some pieces if they're going to compete this next year, and they've got to add some pieces if they're going to be ready in 2 years to be in the Big 12.
Blaine Fowler is with us on BYU Sports Nation. Clearly, BYU needs a point guard because –
might need two.
Outside of Dallin Hall, who was a combo guard off of a mission, he can play point guard. He did so in high school, but he's just more of a naturally gifted scorer. There's not much there. Who else is going to play point guard? That has to be priority number one, does it not?
It absolutely is. And we can't talk about guys. There's some really high-profile point guards that BYU's after that if people want to – on this show, we can't talk about it, right? We all know who they are. You all know who they are back home. They've got to get one of these guys they're going after at point guard. They literally need to go get a starting point guard. And that's not to say that Dallin Hall can't emerge eventually. He can play the point.
Yeah. I
think he's going to have to play the point. I think he's going to have to contribute next year. What would be really nice.
You do, at point guard.
Yeah.
As at least the backup.
At least the backup. Yep. I don't think he has to be the guy at point guard next year because he's just going to be fresh off of a mission. That's too much to expect, right?
Yep.
But I do think that we can expect that he comes and plays significant minutes at the point as a backup. So that means in the transfer portal, you got to go get a starting point guard because Tijon and Alex are gone. And, they thought bringing Tijon in was going to take pressure off of Alex to have to handle the ball. And that Alex still had to handle the ball a bunch, right? So they lose both of those guys. And so they got to go get somebody. They've got some real high-profile guys. If they get one of those, then I think Dallin could be a really good – I think he's going to have to contribute. And I think in the transfer portal – right now, it looks like they've got a couple of scholarships. I think before it's all said and done, they may have 3. I think they need a big to augment what Atiki and Foose can do. And I think Foose needs to be able to play some 4, right? And maybe Caleb can go over and play some 3 if Foose can play some 4. That's going to help Caleb because he was always a face-up guy, and all of a sudden he's with his back to the basket all the time this last year. So that would make them better. And I think they need a combo 4-5 that can stretch defenses a little bit, that is a little different than a Tiki and Foose. They can step out and make you go cover the 3 out there. And they've had some good bigs that they've got through. I think Harms was a great contributor when he came in. So they need a big. I think they need a big combo wing, a 6'6", 6'7" wing, and most importantly, they need a point guard. And I think they're going to have 3 scholarships available. You know, we just had the transfer news of Hansen and Erickson. That opened up 2 scholarships. I think they'll have 1 more, and that's what they need to go get. And they need to get guys that have 2 or 3 years of eligibility, not one and dones, because they need those guys to be part of what they do as they step into the Big 12.
Yes.
And they can use that now for the first time. This is the first offseason where they could say, hey, you can play in the Big 12.
Yes.
Let's talk about what you mentioned with the backcourt. It feels like it's already kind of loaded to push Caleb into that area, / I think he needs to stay in the front court. And if you're already signing some transfers, is there enough space to put Caleb at the 3 in that situation? I've always felt like he's a 4. They had to play him at some 5. It's not ideal. Hopefully you sign another 5 and you have a Tiki and you're good.
I mean, for me, if you don't ever play him at the 5 again, unless you specifically are going against a team that you want to go small and run against, that would be great for him. Because I think he needs to be primarily a 4, but maybe spend some time at 3. When you're looking at matchups and you're playing a team that has a big 3 that he can go out and defend on the perimeter, and maybe you play a team that has a 3 that can't defend him on the perimeter. I mean, Caleb used to be a really good shooter, right? And so there's just this confidence issue. If he can get that confidence back and knock down shots, then when you push up on him, you know what he can do. He'll put it on the floor and he'll dunk on people's heads, right? And so I think that he would be happier as a player if he could play 3 and 4, primarily 4, but play some minutes at the 3, and never play at the 5 if you can help.
Certainly, and as a face-up player, because his entire career he has been a face to the basket, not a back to the basket player.
And BYU's deepest spot right now is the 2, right? And I think Seneca is going to take a huge jump this year because he's going to understand his role better. I think there were times when the light bulb was on, and other times where it's like, I'm not quite sure where I'm supposed to get my shot. And this is Alex's team. So I think he takes a huge step forward this year and becomes the guy he was at San Jose State, where he understands I'm a primary scorer. I can have the ball in my hands. I can go get some points. And he's not a shooter. He's a scorer. And he can be that this next year. So the 2's and Seneca can play some 3. Right?
Yeah, 2 and 3 interchangeable. Right. I wonder, Blaine, if it's the same situation as San Jose State, though, because that team was terrible. Like, someone had to score.
You
know what I mean?
The guy.
So I wonder in this situation if it's the same. But whoever BYU brings in, they're trying to make the tourney next year, which brings us to this. Is next year about next year, or is it about preparing for the Big 12? Because ideally it's both, but it's hard to do both.
It is hard to do both. I think that our expectations can be, if they get the right people, if they go get a really high-quality point guard and then another big, even if they don't get a wing like I want them to, with the pieces they have, this is a team that's successful. And I realize they play in the Challenge of Atlantis. What is that called?
Bahamas or whatever?
Yeah, the one in Atlantis. I want to go cover that one if we can.
Seriously.
So they have quite a challenging preseason schedule. But this is a year where I always expect that they're going to win 20 games, even in a reload year, right? And the schedule's conducive to them to be able to do that if people step up that need to step up. But I do think it's vital they get a point guard and a big from the transfer portal. And then you got to get guys. You guys talk about Saunders and Toulson. These are shooting guards. There were big-time recruits. Toulson, we were talking about off on the air, 5'6" as a freshman in high school, 6'5" as a senior with the skill set that he had when he was 5'6". This is Andy Toulson's boy. Andy Toulson's one of the best fundamental shooters I've ever seen. When you watch Tanner shoot, you're like, man, that's Andy. Great footwork, perfect form. So he shot 46% from 3. He's going to be a really good Big 12 player. He's a 6'5" that can really stroke it, right? And we already talked about Dallin, and then Saunders reminds me of, I hate to even say this because people are like, oh, really? He reminds me of Chase Fisher with his ability to shoot and elevate and do those kinds of things. And so he's also a really good 2-3 kind of a guy. And so great shooting is what BYU is going to need in the Big 12. Let those guys come back from their mission. Dallin Hall is going to have to contribute, I think, because they're so thin at the point, and he can play the point. Let those guys develop. And now you're going to the Big 12, and you got Tiki back for his 3rd year, Tiki back, and you've got Foose and these transfers that you brought in. They have another year.
Colin Chandler.
And Dallin Hall's in his 2nd year. And then Tanner Toulson and Richie are coming back. And then Colin Chandler joins the team, who's truly an NBA talent. I think you can do both.
Okay.
I think you can do both. I don't know. Is it an NCAA tournament team or is it borderline like this year? That's okay with me if they are, as long as I look like they're making progress to go into the Big 12.
Okay, Blaine, we need to bring something up that showed up on Twitter over the weekend from a man named Andy Malnosky at 18 Sports Andy, who pointed out a 1979 sports flashback on 16-millimeter film.
Is this from 1929?
It says,
look at this film, Blaine.
Fowler and the Blue Devils scorched Southside in the Erie Bell game. Look at you, fleet of foot.
Oh, throwing on the run.
Escaping pressure, connecting with the receiver downfield.
I like when my
nice
guys fumble forward for 15
forward,
yards.
yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
No, and it's, you know what, it brought back some fun memories. It's funny, when you think back, I'm watching that. Well, the first thing I'm saying is, hey, it would have been good to have somebody block right there instead of getting smacked in the face. But the thing that I thought about watching this was all of the guys on the team. Like, it was just like, oh my gosh, it brings back memories of friendships. That's what sports is all about, you know? When we go talk about the teams that I played on in the 80s and national championships, the thing that, when we had that alumni day the other day and that alumni flag football game, it's just all about the relationships. That's exactly what I thought. I tweeted back at him and told him thanks for that great memory, but mostly the memory of the players that I played with that are, you know, several of which are still really good friends today. That's what being in sports is all about. That team's a really good team. Our starting tight end was 6'5" and 230 and started for 4 years at Syracuse. Marty Chalk. Ricky Allen, our wide receiver, Richie Allen's son, the National League two-time most valuable player, was a 10-500-meter guy playing wide receiver. My job was pretty easy. Drop back and just huck it. Kind of like what Max Hall did in the alumni game at the end. When Jarom had the mic, and the guy's like, I'm this and I'm that. And Max is like, hey, guys, I'm just going to huck it, okay? I'm just going to huck it.
Got to chuck it up.
With that team, all I had to do was just drop back and huck it. That was a fun team.
That's awesome. And I can't believe you played in 1929. That's crazy, man.
Blaine, great to have you here, man.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, coming up, where does Tyler Algier sit on the best steals in the NFL draft list?
And Barry Trammell of the Oklahoman says BYU's facilities are mostly Big 12 ready. So which facilities need work? This is BYU Sports Nation.
Accidents don't just happen 9 to 5. They happen when you least expect them. The team at Siegfried & Jensen is here for you 24/7. Nights, weekends, every day, every hour. Really here for you. No matter when you call us, you'll speak to a real person and have access to the same expertise and personal attention as always, and get the legal help you need when you need it. Nights, weekends, every day, every hour, 24/7.
Learn more at siegfriedandjensen.com.
They prefer to be bringing the heat, getting set for success, demonstrating their drive. But when their blood and sweat turns to tears or anything else, we lay the groundwork for BYU's athletes to hit the ground running again, and you as well. Intermountain Healthcare, official medical provider for BYU Athletics.
As the days grow brighter, so can your life. With stories of faith, love, renewal, and hope.
It's about sharing the light of Christ and being the vessel for God's love.
The BYU TV app offers a deep library of shows to lift and inspire. Simply download it and start streaming for free. Share the gift of BYU TV with family and friends this Easter season.
BYU Sports Nation is brought to you by Maersk, enabling global trade for a growing world.
I passed a Maersk truck in California. I was like, hey, shipping.
Enabling global trade for a growing world.
On the newest Deep Blue podcast, I talked with David Nixon in part 2. Part 1 wasn't enough. About the 06 to 08 seasons, his time in the NFL, including getting a game ball one week and getting cut the next. Listen to it on the BYU Radio app and where podcasts are found.
He is Jarom. I'm Spencer. This is a Monday edition of BYU Sports Nation. To interact with the show and get content throughout the day, follow us on all of the major social media platforms, including Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. Now we whip it. And the Cougar Whip Around is presented by Maersk, your integrated container logistics company enabling global trade for a growing world.
Bleacher Report has Tyler Algier as 5th on a list of potential biggest steals in the upcoming NFL draft. How likely is it that Tyler Algier is a day 2 pick, a.k.a. 2nd or 3rd round?
3rd round, I'd put him at about 25%. I think that just because running backs are not what they were once in the NFL draft and their value, that a bunch of these guys are going to slide into later rounds. So I'd say 25%. I think of him as a 4th round pick.
I like 4th round. Let's hope for 3rd and get 4th.
Colin Chandler wants to be a 1st round pick in the NBA. Tweeted out this video of him dunking hard and catching a body this weekend. Does this get you more excited about Colin Chandler at BYU?
No, because I can't be more excited about Colin Chandler at BYU. I messaged him. He said this is the Nike Hoops Summit. He was on the scrimmage squad. Pretty cool to see him in the USA jersey, dude, throwing down.
Love that.
BGB, or the artist formerly known as Big Game Boomer, wow, ranks the Littlewood-Eakin combo as 30th on baseball, softball coaching duos. What is the best coaching duo on campus in similar sports?
Hard to argue with cross country right now, Jarom, with Ed Eyestone and Diljit Taylor, because they've been winning national championships, multiple in the last few years, and then had multiple individual national championship winners. So it's hard to beat that.
I will argue for the Olmsteads.
Okay.
Because they are both the winningest coaches in their sport by winning percentage, which is pretty awesome. Obviously, that doesn't equate to cross country in winning percentage, but that's pretty good too.
Yes.
Amazing coaches at Brigham.
Now, do football and soccer, which is also football, does that correlate? Because if so, then Kalani Sitake and Jen Rockwood is a nice combo
good
there too.
Yeah. Hey, you know how you win? Great coaches.
Yes.
Great players.
And BYU has a lot of
great
them.
ingredients, Papa John's.
Boise State teased and then unveiled plans for a new athletics village facility. It's the Olympics?
What is this, the Olympics? Yeah, exactly.
Will this athletics village help them get into a Power 5 conference?
No, it's not. Will it help? Sure. But it's more about location and the whole athletic department with Boise State and like TV market. That's the issue. I hope Boise State's in the Big 12. I want Boise State in the Big 12.
Yeah, I just don't think that's going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen. Yeah, it's great. It's a good thing for Boise State. I do not think that is like, oh, now they're more Power 5 ready.
Now they are.
Nope.
Yeah, going undefeated wasn't enough. Roy McIlroy had a few fun celebrations at the Masters after some incredible shots, namely holding out of the bunker on 18 to shoot at 64 yesterday. That was amazing.
He wasn't sure what to do.
Yeah. What are some of your favorite BYU football celebrations?
I'm going to go back to Riley Nelson against TCU, the high five to the referee after he scored a touchdown.
I was right next to Riley when this happened.
This is fantastic.
And I was about to flip up the switch to say, hey, he just high-fived the ref, but Mark Lyons beat me to it.
I mean, granted, it was a 2-point conversion, but whatever. He still high-fives the ref to make it a 10-point game.
Yeah,
that was
awesome.
really fun.
Awesome.
The Hauk hug against Nebraska is one of my most favorite celebrations. He wasn't even the player that caught the touchdown.
We were all hugging each other. That was very cathartic.
He's just incredulous. He just runs the sideline and hugs the first person he sees. Yes! Hug the referee!
Luckily, it was dead ball, and he didn't get a penalty.
Okay. What about you? What are some of yours?
This one's super random. JJ DeLuigi against Wyoming in 2009. He scores a touchdown, then he does this little dance, and he got a 15-yard penalty, and he told me after that he planned on doing it. So I said, you planned on getting a penalty? Which was pretty funny. Steve Young, 1983, is an all-timer.
Loses his mind.
After beating Missouri, his final play, he scored. Will he score? He does score. And then he's like,
He said, and he's told us this on a few occasions, he kind of lost his mind. He was out of body at that point.
Oh,
I didn't know what to do. This is like pure elation.
You couldn't possibly plan what to do in those moments. Plus, Kalani Sitake dancing and just celebrating on the sideline. Kalani's a very fun person. And it's just beating his chest, stoked, dancing. So fun, right? So fun.
Oh, good stuff. Okay. The Cougarettes, as we noted earlier in the show, have won 2 more national titles. That's number 21 and number 22.
It's amazing.
Wild.
Cross country's like, we have to win how many?
It's wild. Jarom, is BYU a dance school?
Yes, it's a dance school and a volleyball school and a soccer school and a football school.
How about just a women's sports school right now?
BYU's an athletic school. Like the athletic program this year has been unbelievable. Just the best year ever. This is the greatest year in BYU athletics. And the Cougarettes are included in that. And cheerleading took fourth, by the way. Congratulations.
Yeah.
They were first going into the final day and took fourth, so they were a little disappointed by that. But still, amazing stuff from Daytona Beach.
They're competing at the highest level, too. Like, there are several divisions of these championships.
A celestial level, Spencer.
The highest level.
No, you're out.
Real championship.
Coming up, which one of you is going to get today's Elite Voice of the Day?
And BYU impressed Big 12 rider Barry Trammell. What does he have to say about his visit, and where can they use the facilities upgrade? This is BYU Sports Nation. Hi, Spencer Linton here, letting you know when your company joins the BYU team as a corporate partner, your brand can be featured in sports programming on BYU TV and BYU Radio. In addition to all of the great games, you can be part of the BYU coaches shows, place your message in Countdown to Kickoff, basketball pre- and post-game shows, and each weekday on BYU Sports Nation. We invite your team to join ours and become a corporate sponsor of BYU Athletics. For details, email sponsorship@byu.edu today.
I know what it's like to be overlooked, to be doubted, to fly under the radar. I only had one offer coming out of high school, but I was ready for every moment, every opportunity, and every shot that I got. Now I'm playing professional basketball, aiming to be one of the best shooters on the planet. And I'm just getting started. Be ready for your moment with Rapid Reboot, the future of rapid recovery.
And now, introducing your Mountain America All-Stars. Out of BYU, Alex Barcelo and Shaylee Gonzalez.
Thanks for the warm welcome.
So, is this where we get the BYU card?
But of course. The only place you can.
This is really cool.
Yeah, but mine's better.
No way.
Get your BYU card from Mountain America today. It's perfect for students, alumni, and super fans.
BYU Sports Nation is presented by the BYU Store, official outfitter of BYU fans everywhere.
Yo, subscribe to BYU Sports Nation on YouTube. You can get all the interviews from the show, BYU Sports Nation Right Now episodes. Subscribe today, BYU Sports Nation on the YouTube.
Yes, welcome back to BYU Sports Nation, live currently in Studio B. Longtime columnist from the Oklahoman, Barry Trammell, was a guest on the show on Friday.
He was in the studio. That was a fun combo.
Shout out to Dave McCann, Kristen Kozlowski, and
Yeah.
others holding it down the fort while we were gone. But
Fort Studio B, is that the name of this place?
Yeah, yes. He was a fantastic guest on the show, enjoyed a full-scale tour of BYU's campus and all the facilities, and he published a travel blog about some of his time here and those experiences. A couple of things really stood out to us. First, Trammell talked about the BYU facilities and how they will translate to the current Big 12. And I quote, BYU will need to do some things to get up to Big 12 speed, including some facility upgrades. But in some ways, BYU facilities are ahead of the Big 12 standard. Okay. He continues, BYU's Diamond Sports have better facilities than Oklahoma State or Oklahoma softball, plus Oklahoma baseball. But think about it. A school in northern Utah has excellent softball and baseball facilities. It snows here a lot.
Yeah.
It's going to snow tomorrow, for crying out loud.
Yes.
He continues, the football stadium, while fine, probably needs the most upgrades, Lavelle Edwards Stadium. Lavelle Edwards has the most of the amenities you need, including a giant new video board, but there are infrastructure improvements that could be made, though nothing outlandish. More luxury suites would help. BYU has about 42. Doubling that would help the Cougars immensely, and there's room for such expansion, end quote.
He is right. The locker room needs to be renovated as well. It's a stadium.
At the stadium specifically.
Yes, and he is exactly right. Luxury suites need to double. I agree wholeheartedly. BYU won't make that move, I don't think, though, until it gets some of that TV money. Then it can be like, all right, we got, because what BYU does, people don't always know this. What BYU does is they make sure they have the money beforehand almost every time.
And then more money to maintain said upgrades.
Yes.
In perpetuity.
which is pretty wild. So BYU operates in the black, right? Which is unique. So hopefully BYU will make these upgrades the first couple years of being in the Big 12, because now, and you don't know what the TV deal is going to be exactly because it's not been negotiated yet for the 2025 season. But BYU certainly needs to do that. But it is validating that Barry acknowledges in many ways BYU is ahead of the standard, which is great. And obviously there's a few things that need to be upgraded. Like people have asked about, volleyball, like should BYU build its own volleyball facility? I say no, honestly. The Terraflex is amazing. The unique Smith Fieldhouse has a home court advantage. I say no. I don't want BYU to build one at Provo High. I don't want that. Soccer. Does soccer need kind of on the media side more of I know there were plans 15 years ago to do this. They haven't done anything. Some kind of press box on that side, being a little more elevated and having, maybe, I don't know. Yes, you can always upgrade the stuff. Baseball's pretty good. And softball's pretty good.
My only complaint is I want more than one bathroom in that press box.
Yeah, 100%. One time I was calling a baseball game, Spence, and I had to go between innings. Our breaks are 90 seconds.
Oh, they're 60 now, Jarom.
They're 60 now.
They're 60 seconds now.
Okay, yeah, that's tough when it's a 3.5, 4 hour
So
game.
you run down there and somebody's in the bathroom. Okay, well.
You're like, no, you're out. I'm the ump now. You're gone. Yeah.
The facility upgrade at LaVell Edwards Stadium is, he makes a great point there. Yeah, let's make it more luxury. Let's upgrade that baby.
They've done that with basketball, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
There used to be a lot more media seats. Nope. Half of it is for.
And I would love for teams at BYU not to have to compete for the indoor practice facility with intramurals and other classes. So if they could build another building that would open up that opportunity for teams just to have more access to the indoor practice facility, that's probably number 2.
I thought of another one. The bottom level of the Marriott Center needs to be way more accessible. And I wonder if there need to be luxury suites in the Marriott Center at some point. You could make a killing on that. Okay, next quote. BYU TV's, we love this one, is a thriving enterprise with 160 full-time employees plus an army of student workers that shames the Longhorn Network. What? ESPN can't wait to get out from under Bevo TV. Oh, my gosh. The LDS Church has much more stamina for BYU TV than ESPN has for the Longhorn Network. Oh, my gosh.
Tell it how it really is, Barry.
Can you see the flames coming off of this? How will BYU TV be involved with the Big 12? Too early to tell. But BYU TV has been producing its own telecasts of sporting events for more than a decade. Correction, it's been 40 years. And produces a variety of West Coast Conference events. No reason why BYU TV can't enhance the Big 12. It's true. We'll see what our role is. We don't know exactly. There have been conversations.
I am understandably intrigued to find out what BYU TV is even allowed to make a play at and do once they join the Big 12 and all of their athletes.
They have an ESPN deal with all the Olympic sports. Who knows? Who knows what happens? Hopefully,
can they strike a deal with BYU TV so that, hey, ESPN just takes the BYU TV feed and streams it on ESPN Plus? Because we've done that before.
Prepare yourself to have to not have the autonomy we've had before, potentially. Hopefully not. But we'll see. So, go check that out in the Oklahoman. It was a fun read.
Yeah, and maybe because BYU TV is so amicable with the Big 12, and a breath of fresh air, if you will, compared to what Barry Tran was writing about the Longhorn Network.
Right.
Maybe we will be granted more opportunities here, specifically in this building. Who knows? I don't know.
We can continue to do a gajillion studio shows. We know that.
Sure.
We know that.
That won't stop.
Yeah. Coming up, today's the Elite Voice of the Day.
And if you do this twice in a weekend, you are guaranteed a Rise and Shout Out on Monday. This is BYU Sports Nation.
Really? What is it?
Trio Orem Senior Living believes in empowering seniors to live life to the fullest. We help eliminate stress out of daily life when you live at Trio. Less time focusing on housework means you can socialize at one of our many events, with safety in mind, of course. And did we mention our spacious apartments with modern amenities? Learn more about setting up a private tour at trioorum.com.
I've always had questions about my biological relatives.
I always wondered if I had any siblings.
I had questions that my adopted family couldn't answer.
I'm really about to find family. This is really happening.
My family has always been open about me being adopted.
I had been searching for the last 40 years.
Which she just hit a dead end every time.
It was challenging. It was a struggle. It was very emotional.
I'm just fearful of that rejection.
It took a minute to comprehend what we were really getting ourselves into.
The connections that we made with the other teammates, that will be lasting relationships forever.
It was a beautiful experience to see her conquer her fears.
It's funny how God has a way of making sure that her family gets in the right place.
Relative race was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
It felt amazing to connect with, family I never even know I had.
I am eternally grateful for this show and what it has done for me.
You got to live every day to your fullest.
This portion of BYU Sports Nation is presented by Mountain America, the official credit union of BYU Athletics.
BYU Sports Nation always available on demand via the BYU TV and BYU radio apps.
Or download the pod. Just Google BYU Sports Nation podcast, subscribe, rate, and review.
Our question of the day is such. What is the greatest need for BYU basketball to fill for next season? Jackson Jones on Twitter says, BYU needs more size, not only to combat against the teams they play this year, or this upcoming season, but also next season for the Big 12. They need to have someone to replace Barcelo and more scoring.
Yep.
A lot to replace, but Mark Pope can recruit guys he needs, so I have confidence in him.
How big will the Big 12 card be in recruiting, I wonder?
It's already proved pretty big with Colin Chandler, you would think.
I mean, that's the highest recruit BYU's ever had. Is that the tip of the iceberg? Like, is BYU getting BYU needs to get as many of the top obvious members of the church who want to come to BYU. Obviously, they have no excuse unless they just don't want to be here, which is a fine excuse. You don't have to come here if you don't want. But we'd love to have you. But other talented players, like BYU is a 6th seed in as an at-large because they have 7'3" Matt Harms and Oklahoma State transfer Brandon Averett and Alex Barcelo. Like, they had Power 5 dudes. You know what I mean? Like, who aren't members of the church, who were awesome here. You got to find those guys again.
Listen, BYU needs to look east in the JUCO transfer portal. Okay? Okay?
Nice.
All right.
See what you did there.
Our Elite Voice of the Day presented by Sundance Mountain Resort from @CougarA70 on Twitter. BYU needs a long-term big guy, 6'11" or taller, to complement Fousseyni Traore and Caleb Lohner.
Or taller wasn't in there. Exactly 6'11".
6'11", okay. Also, someone needs to take over the leadership role left by Alex Barcelo's departure.
Yeah.
Got to be tough in the paint. Today's Rise and Shoutouts presented by Mountain America, the official credit union of BYU Athletics. How could we not give it to the BYU Cougarettes, who won DOS national championships?
21st and 22nd titles. For those who don't know Spanish, that means El Nino.
DOS.
Yeah, that is Spanish for the Nino. Congrats.
Our thanks to today's guest, Blaine Fowler.
Sorry to Dennis Pitta, we ran out of time. Conversation continues 24/7 on the Twitter, Instagram, and the Facebook. Use the hashtag BYU.
A lot of does. For Jarom, I am Spencer. Shout out to Harland AU. We'll see you tomorrow on BYU Sports Nation. Dance until then. Celebrate. Go Cougs.